chugging along today. Hi, it's Sav. Welcome back to Book It. We are moving right along today with the fourth book in the Maze Runner series, which is The Kill Order. So this book is actually a prequel, but it is a prequel to before Thomas and Teresa's story. So the Maze Runner story follows like Thomas and Teresa and like all that stuff. The Crank Palace followed Newt and like during the Death Cure. This is the prequel to before all of the Maze Runner stuff. It's like right when the end of the world was happening. This is the beginning. So it's like, yeah. So the book starts, it's kind of confusing. The book starts with Thomas going through the swipe where he got his memory erased, but then the book does not continue with him. So like we see Thomas in the very beginning get his memory swiped, like the very first, and then it immediately goes over to 13 years earlier. So then we go back, so before Thomas was even a part of this. And this is when we meet our two main characters, which is Mark and Trina. These are the main characters of the entire book. So let's begin. These are the main characters when everything hits the fan. So we learn like what life was like beforehand, and then now they're trying to survive the virus along with the solar flares that are coming down. So they're really getting double whammied out here. Literally the ozone is collapsed. There's so much like sun flares, and now people are getting sick. So they're trying to avoid both. They're trying not to be outside because like, the sun, and then they're trying not to be inside because, oh my God, disease. So they decide to run away. And they're going, because there's a tsunami coming. They decide to wait out the tsunami in the building. This is when they meet a yacht crew. And they're like, oh my God, we're gonna get rescued. No, this is when the yacht crews like, give us all your food. So because of this solar flares, literally the weather, the people, everyone is kind of losing their mind. It is the end of the world. So imagine if you're in the end of the world, people are gonna be like losing their shit. So basically this yacht crew robs them of everything that they had, which was not a lot to start. They end up taking over the yacht crew, and they make their way to another town who has been wiped out by the flare virus, by the infection. This is when they meet Misty, who has a headache, which is like a red flag. And she then sings some creepy ass song about dying, which is like, ugh. Then they bounce around to a bunch of different like bases and like facility, and they're trying to find like safety, and everywhere they go, they're running into people who are like not okay, or there's like a situation where they're not, like nothing's working out for them. They arrive at a base and sneak into what appears to be a site of a PFC, which is the Post-Flare Coalition. So these are people who are like trying to like get the world to like chill out. So these are like the scientists, stuff like that. This is when they learn about the flare and the virus that causes people's brain to shut down. Like it shuts down like their cognitive functions. And they also learn that the girls were given back to an infected cult. So they meet these girls out, like this group of girls out when they're like bouncing from place to place, and then they learn that they go back to this cult. It's very whatever. They end up getting caught, then they escape and they steal another burg. This is when they find Dee Dee and Trina, and Mark starts to like lose his mind. They realize that Dee Dee is immune. So they are like, okay, let's get her to the PFC base in Alaska. Because people are going to Alaska because it's like colder there. And so like the flare doesn't really affect them the same, because like when you're in a hot place and you get a solar flare, it's like different. So they end up getting Dee Dee to the PFC in Alaska, but they end up crashing the burg. Mark and Trina flip back on. They remember who they are for a second, kiss, tell each other they love each other, and then they slowly slip into madness. And then it bounces to 2 years later, Wicked. We see Steven gets taken from his mother because he's immune to the virus. We then learn that they rename him Thomas. Wow, right? Dee Dee is there, and Dee Dee is revealed to be Teresa. So the whole book we're like learning about this girl named Dee Dee, and like she's a little girl, she's like immune. Her name is actually Teresa, or they rename her Teresa, because if you remember, the Maze Runner cast is like, all the characters are named after prominent scientists. Thomas Edison, she was named after Mother Teresa. Newt is Isaac Newton. I'm trying to think of like who else. I can't even think of any other names right now. Galileo. Like, so it's like that they get renamed to Teresa, and she was to save people in the world despite of like suffering the infection. When she first meets Thomas, he's happy to be away from infected people, but she kind of sees them as humans still, as he sees them more of like they're infected. Like, I want to stay away. I don't want to be near them, because he's young. They're little kids. And then I literally put in here, was this a redemption arc for Teresa? Because I still don't like her. Because this whole book, like, we go through and we learn to kind of like Teresa. We're like, oh, like, cute. Like, but I also can't stand her. So, like, why would I care? This book has the lowest rating on Goodreads out of all of the series. And I personally agree, which is saying a lot because I really hated the Scorched Trials, and we all saw that. But this book is not my favorite. I spent most of the time like extremely bored with it, which is bad to say. But like, I feel like it was more, I wish it was more about the people in the story, because in all honesty, like, it's really terrible that he wrote an entire book about these two people, Mark and Trina. And then they save this girl named Dee Dee. And they're trying to get Dee Dee to this, like, you know, we're going to get her there. They get her there. And then they die. Basically. They don't die. They lose their minds because of the flare. So it's like, why did I spend this entire time liking the characters for them to disappear? And then they're like, oh, like, Dee Dee is actually Teresa. Like, it just wasn't for me. Like, I was just bored. I was like, wow, I would have rather seen something else. I wish it was more about Thomas and Teresa and not some randos. So I really like, because you learn to like the characters, and then they're like, all right, just kidding. Like, and then they're never talked about again. Like, they're never discussed in any of the original series. They're never like, they're just not discussed ever again, which I just don't. But overall, this book, I gave it a 2 out of 5, which is such a low rating, but like, in my defense, it was so boring. And I personally feel like you can just skip this book in the series, which is like so bad to say. Like, sorry, I love James Dashner. We all know I'm a stan for him, but like, this book, I feel like you can just totally skip it. Like, you just don't need it. You don't need to understand the story. It doesn't really give you much around. Because like, yes, we learn about Dee Dee or Teresa. We learn about her, but like, we don't learn enough where it's like mega life-changing. Like, we learn that Thomas hates infected people at the very beginning. But then we see him as he grows up, he really cares about everybody, and it doesn't matter if you're infected or not, he cares about you. So like, that's kind of like oh, okay, well then that was pointless for us to be like, oh my God, look, he hates people who are infected by this disease. And then years later, he's like, I don't care, people are people. So like, maybe if there's like Teresa having that effect on him, great, but like, I still not Teresa stan, don't care for her. Personally, I feel like you can just skip this book. And yeah, that's basically it for this book. I'm gonna post it on my Goodreads, so please make sure you follow that. We have one more book of the series today, which is The Fever Code, which I'm about to record that, and then we're gonna be all good to go in the hood. So that's it for the kill order. I did not like this book, but I'm gonna say it with a smile. You can just, if you're gonna read the series and you're like, I wanna skip a book, I'd do this one. I'd skip this one over The Scorched Child, just saying a lot, because we all know my opinion on that one. But yeah, that's it for this book. Thank you so much for watching. Oh my God, one hiccup. Please make sure you like and subscribe. It helps me out so much more than you actually think it does. And then also make sure you follow along, because we're almost done with the Maze Runner week. It literally ends tomorrow. So sad. But no, I'm gonna go ahead and record that video so we can go ahead and get that all up and running. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye.